still?
Yeah, we're good.
Good.
Hey,
Okay.
Trina, this is Bill. I'd like to make a public service announcement that Mickey will be on TV 6:30 on Saturday night on Adam Meikle's program,
Hey, everybody, definitely watch it.
helping us to promote the Wasatch Expo,
Ah,
which if anybody haven't got a copy of one of my 8,000 emails, let me know.
Is it only 8,000, Bill? Is that all you've sent?
Yeah, my
I'm
wife's
trying to hold back. Actually, it's 5,000 at a time. And I've got 11 of them out and 3 more to go. So
Okay, so yes, thank you for that announcement, Bill. Yeah, I think we are good to go. Although I was going to say, just with the projects, something that I have been learning just, in the last year or so is that, so we'll take your rankings and, there'll be basically a line, right, that we can fund, and maybe we could scoot a higher priority that didn't make the funding list, just because it has a smaller amount requested, it might fit into the funding list. But then everything that doesn't get funded, I take to Habitat Council, to our fisheries chief, and other sources of money we heard about, like the sportsman's stuff that's coming up. So it's not just yes or no always. Like there's definitely potential for maybe trying to figure out how to fund the other projects that didn't make the top cut. So order does matter, and definitely think about it, right? Because if it's not doesn't make the funding cut, but it's higher up on the list, it's maybe a better bet to go to a different funding source and try to make it work and try to get it funded. So yeah,
because I found myself I think there were three of the waters that were not blue ribbon, but there may be a tributary to, or they could potentially be blue ribbon. So I thought, gosh, but that's not in our criteria to rank them, right?
yeah. So, and that's why I mentioned the Matt Warner fencing, and we'd like it to be, right? So I had that on the agenda to talk about, do we want to try to visit that this year and rank it this year? If so, then, and we think it has high potential, then it's probably worth talking about putting some funding to it, even though it's not technically a blue ribbon area. Mount Warner is upstream from Calder. That is a potential water. So it's kind of understanding the area and what the potential is as well.
And then also one of the presentations, they were on their final phase, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's not in our criteria either, because I felt like, oh man, they're so close to the finish line,
Yeah, no,
let's let them. I felt like that should be a higher weighted in the process it's their final phase.
Yeah.
And
No,
so,
it's a good point.
I don't know when we want to discuss those things, or.
Well, I think the first thing we better do is better take roll. So
Yeah. So I'm so excited.
They take over.
Want me to start, Trina?
Yes, go right ahead.
TJ Sakalas, chairman and at large.
Mickey Anderson, commercial rep.
Rebecca Granillo, Coldwater representative.
Dan Hill, northeastern rep. Russ Lawrence, warm water.
Ryan Newman, warm water.
Dean Krieger, northern region, cold water.
Jane, guys, and I didn't say what my region or title or whatever was because I don't think
I think you're Coldwater. You replaced Rich.
Coldwater. Thank you.
Lan Larson, southern rep. Online.
Bill Quap, and I'm having brain failure too, but I think it might be northeast.
Central region. Central region rep.
That's close to northeast.
Well,
I'll check out the list, so because it's got everyone's contact, and I think we've shared that, but it also has your area, right? Yeah, just so you know, just a reminder.
Yeah, and we've got, who else?
So that's, I just want to say that's probably just AV folks.
Okay,
Oh, but we also have Oakley from the division's southern region.
all right, we want to find out.
Missing
the
Gary and
Terry.
Nick Braceway, I'm
New
the
Zealand.
fisheries biologist.
flying back.
Commissioner Bradley is
Jim Bradley, observer.
observer.
And also interested in serving on the council potentially. And we just, it's nice to see people and meet people. And so I invited him here today. He was interested anyway. And just so everyone could meet him, he could kind of get a feel for what we do and see how things go.
Trina, this is Bill again. I got one more public service announcement. If there are anybody on the blue ribbon that is not a member of TU, now is the time to change that because it is free first year membership. And I'll send a note out to Trina and she can pass it to everybody since I don't know that I have a compiled list of everybody, but I think she could. And this is a first time opportunity in my probably 30 plus year involvement with TU. So.
Is this owl not picking up anybody else except me?
I don't know.
I'm Gar Birchall. I'm a assistant aquatic manager in the Northeast region.
My name is Carson Hinkhouse. I'm a fisheries biologist in the Northeast region.
I am Chris Crockett, I'm the regional aquatics management on our Springfield office.
And Mike Slater, the Sportfish project leader, working with Chris in the Springfield office. And I'd also just vouch for Jim over here. He's helped me an awful lot in the past on Mill Creek project. I don't know if that rings a bell for anybody, but he was pretty instrumental with the county. We would go and present information to them every year. What are we doing? Where are we going? And he was really helpful, come out with us a time or two with some of our spawning efforts at Little Dell and other things. I think it's awesome to see you here and interested in this kind of stuff.
And that Mill Creek project was a high profile project. So appreciate that.
Right. We got everybody counted for?
I think so.
All right. You want to do minutes next?
No. So I did get meeting minutes. I wanted to let everyone know, but it was only on Tuesday and that just wasn't enough time.
Okay.
So we'll review November, probably January, and then this is kind of a shorter meeting and mostly we're just hearing projects. So probably just do a quick, like a short little summary. We'll just deal with all of those in June.
Want to get to the projects right now?
We could do that, or we could go through the business.
If you want to do.
Chris, you need to leave at 2, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we can just go through. So I asked these guys to talk to you today about just access for some of the waters that we're going to rank this year. And so I think most of you probably know access at a lot of these waters, but it doesn't hurt to talk about them, review them a little bit, especially like with some issues on the Provo. And then we are reviewing Utah Lake as a new blue ribbon water body. And so Chris has some information about that. So do we want to just do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
We might let Mike go first. That's
Sure.
because you may need to run down to the Habitat Council to talk.
Okay, let me share the screen and then.
And I might just do it from sitting right here because really I'm going to be talking with this guy here for each of this. That's okay. But if you can kind of drive that for us, man.
Let me make sure.
He's warm water. I'm sorry. Just can't do it. Bill, can you hear us if we're talking from right here?
The high water there.
I can hear you fine. Thank you.
And then Bill, let me know if when I advance the slides, if they don't advance. But it should be working just fine. So.
Okay, so really, in following up with what Trina has asked us to do, we just want to highlight the Provo River and then Utah Lake is some waters that you guys get to assess, fish, play with this year. And so I've got just a few slides and I really want to tap into the expertise of Brian here, who absolutely knows the Provo River better than I ever will. And so he and I are going to kind of talk just a little bit about the Provo River, I'll share some of my favorites or some of the things that I like to do when I'm fishing the Provo River. And I'm probably going to target the lower Provo a little bit more than the middle. But the things that I'm sharing, I believe, translate right to the middle Provo River as well. And all we're talking about is between Jordan Mill and basically the mouth of the Provo Canyon, roughly, is what we wanted to really kind of try and highlight for you and encourage you to fish as you assess. Is this still considered a blue ribbon water? Can we catch fish here? Does it merit the designation that it has had for years and years? So that's kind of our goal here. So maybe the next slide. The thing I wanted to touch on is something that I fish every year, and it's about right now, happening between now and about the middle of April, is the blue olive patch. And it can be incredibly prolific during the spring. Again, the same timelines. And so if I had anything, I would be encouraging you to go out and fish it pretty darn soon. We've got some 70-degree weather next week, and I dare say from that bottom right picture, that's what it can look like at times. When I've been up there fishing between a midge and the blue wing olive itself, they're just everywhere. And how we can catch fish when there's that much food for them to eat anyway, I don't know, but they're dumb enough that they'll still come up and you can have some really good days fishing on the lower Provo River. But that's the bug that we're really kind of targeting is the fly. The one that, but then there's also a midge that looks pretty similar. And these fish, I'm talking more fly fishing, and I apologize for that, but that's kind of what I do when I'm on the Provo River. But these bugs will be coming up from underneath, and it's almost like it doesn't need to be presented as a true mayfly sitting on top of the water. They can be just sitting or just emerging or coming up, and I'll catch more fish as they're doing that than just setting the dry right on top of the water. So maybe the next picture will show.
The slides aren't advancing.
One second.
Okay.
I'm gonna end it.
We could just use it like that.
Let me see.
And I should mention the afternoon. The afternoons are key. You know, you can show up at 8 o'clock in the morning and it's going to be dead as dead. But if you'll just wait, I mean, something triggers them, something takes off, something happens, you know, in the afternoon hours, you know, anywhere between noon and 1 o'clock is my experience. And it'll last as long as 3, 4, maybe even beyond that.
I think it's temperature or sunlight, or what do you think is the deciding factor?
Probably a little bit of both, but I actually do better when it's a little bit cloudy. So not just sunlight, you know, they'll actually come up a little bit more if it's a cloudy day. I've had better days when it's been
Longer
bad weather.
lasting and yeah.
You know, and they're still coming on. But I think it's time of the year, probably more than anything. And one of the reasons I mentioned until about mid-April is the flows completely change on typically about the 15th of April. Instead of being about 75 CFS, it'll jump up to 200, 300, 400 CFS. So it just changes the fishing experience or the opportunity. Not that the fish aren't there, they're still there, but then you're locked into fishing kind of along the shorelines a little bit more than fishing right in the river itself. Am I on track, Brian?
Yeah.
What do you have to add to that as far as timing and things like that? Are we?
Yeah, when people ask me when's the best time to come and fish the Provo River, I tell them 3 times, right? I tell one of them is spring, is April. I'm like around spring break. You'll have some of your best fishing days in April. And then once the water starts to come up, it might knock some of the hatches out a little bit, but you can nymph and do just as well on that. Yeah, the sow bug, a worm or something, but.
What size blue wings are you using?
So last week we were using size 20 and they'll get a little bit bigger. You can get up to 18. If you can't see that, last week we were using, you know, like a hopper, just you could see it and then trailing the blue wing behind it and then just setting the hook on anything that rose around that hopper. And that worked.
So does water, I heard a thing last night at a club meeting that water temperature has something to do with the blue patch, that when the water gets up to a certain temperature.
I think so. I think it's a combination of things. Yeah, for sure. But water temperature.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's cold right now, but it'll improve. You know.
Some of the guys on the Milwaukee say it's about 42 degrees, and they'll actually put thermometers on their boots.
Yeah.
Wading boots. When they see the temp.
That's probably what the temperature is right now during the winter time is that colder water for sure.
That can work. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So, and these are just my personal favorites. I think Ryan's got some others that would probably work as good or better. I am kind of locked into dry fly fishing more than I am the nymph. I just don't do the nymphing very much. And so that's why I use these Brooks Sprouts flies that kind of imitate something that's kind of coming up from the bottom, not necessarily sitting right on top of the water, because I find a lot of these fish are just kind of slurping. Looks like they're really coming up to the top, but they're actually just slurping and picking these things off as they're coming up and drifting. So those are the two flies that I tend to use more than anything. Again, in the springtime.
What's that brown one called?
Same thing, just an emerger pattern. Brooks Sprouts. And you can get these at Fly Fish Food, is where I've kind of stolen some of these pictures from, local shop. All right. Here's just a few other patterns. I think Ryan will throw a couple others here in a minute. These again are just some others that people use. I have used the Griffith's net during the blueing olive patch, and I've done okay in the springtime with those. The Parachute Adams is something that will really right up on top for you, and you'll be able to see it maybe a little bit more. And that's one of the hard things I have. That's why the flies that I use have got the little white foam on top, so I can actually see something. It's getting a little bit harder for me to see, I guess. So,
Yeah.
and a couple other really popular local ones are the two on the left by a local tire. So those are just ideas. And these, I just threw these up just to give you an idea. Again, the one I'm tackling is that blueing olive. If you look on the right-hand side, it's from February through April, is the prime time for the blueing olives. But again, as Ryan said, there's multiple different times of the year that you can still do a lot of good fishing, and you'll still get these tries with blueing olives. But those are just some hatch patterns that have been developed by some local anglers and others, just as a general rule, as to what you can kind of target different times. And then just the kind of habitats, I just wanted to mention a lot of places I'll fish. I fish more in the lower portion of the lower Provo River, and we'll get into some areas where you want to target a little bit more on a few of the later slides here. But just to highlight, I like the really long runs, if you will. There's just fish spread out through the whole river because these bugs are coming up out of the rocks and the gravels and then drifting down. So you don't have to be right in the pool, like at the bottom right corner there, although that is a place that I'll target, is those right on those seams between the pool and that running water behind that rock. But just out in the middle of those big, long, foot deep runs, if you will, there's a lot of fish and a lot of fishing opportunities to be had along there. Ryan, anything to add?
Yeah, I don't know when we were thinking of reviewing this or when having the vote. Was it going to be in the fall or in June?
So, no, we'll talk about things a little more, I think, in June, but the vote will be in the fall.
Okay. Okay. So because I was just going to say, if you really want to see the Provo and one of its highlighted times, April is great. And then as the water comes up, we're just kind of switch over to more nymphing. The pictures on the left were from last week. You kind of see what's going on right now. And then the pictures on the right, when the water was a little higher, it still fishes really well. You know, it kind of discourages me when people say like, oh, the water's high, I can't go and fish it. There's some places that you can fish. You just have to be careful. And really, to me, the river is just like a dinner bell to the fish. I mean, it's just washing everything down for them. And then on the next couple slides, I included some maps to kind of talk about access or where. So this first one, obviously from the trestle up to this state park, Deer Creek State Park, is kind of the area that gets talked about a lot with some of the areas of access that have been locked down. So I just kind of wanted to show, this is from Onyx, and you can see the red areas are private land. And so you can see that's Hoover Hole that's circled, one of the more famous holes on the river. And you can see surrounding Hoover's Hole, there's like 7 different private land owners. So you can see how confusing it's been for anglers. You can see how it's a lot of, some of them are landlocked. Like the one right below Hoover's Hole is a public section owned by a water company, but nobody can access it, right? So on the next couple slides, so I just wanted to show that, because I always tell people like, oh yeah, it's maybe about 4 miles of river that are locked up. So I actually drew it on Onyx, and it was actually not even 2 miles. It was like 1.7 miles of river that is from the trestle to the bottom of the campground. And then that does include the half a mile in the campground that's always been private, right? And then above that, you have another half mile of public stuff you can fish that's in Deer Creek State Park. There's a lot of big fish up there. If you go to the next slide, so, go ahead.
I just think people get the impression that, I've always fished in this one little spot on the river. And for whatever reason, that individual feels like, oh, now I can't go there. Oh, the whole river's locked up. No, actually, if you step upstream or you step downstream, there's a whole bunch of river to be fishing, and there's a whole bunch of fish to be caught. And so I just don't want people to get too scared when they think, oh, we can't fish the lower Provo anymore.
Yeah.
Yes, we can. And I think Ryan's really going to kind of point that out through here. There's all kinds of places for you to be fishing.
Yeah.
I don't want you to feel like, oh, we don't have any access. Yes, there's some litigation and there's some things going on between the division and some landowners, but that's being worked out, and it doesn't mean you cannot fish in the lower Provo.
And so thanks, Mike. And so on this slide and then on the next one, I thought I would just show some really good public access areas. And some of these you'll recognize. So down there on the bottom left is the trestle bridge. And so a lot of people think they've just written off everything above the trestle, like that's all private. So the highlighted area in the yellow, some people may have recognized Herring Hole, Spring Hole, or Horse Bend, depending on what you call it, and Pine Run. They've told me that they don't really, I don't know, patrol's not the right word. They don't really kick people out of that area. So there's that one parking lot that's right off the road there with Herring Hole, the arrow goes to. The only problem there is you have to kind of drop down off a pretty steep hill. But then you can walk all the way up through Pine Run, which is one of the most beautiful stretches of the river, and it is just loaded with fish. And then if you go to the next slide. I hesitated to put this one up. Mike's going to correct me.
No, this stretch right here is what the Division of Wildlife believes we have an easement on. And this is the stretch that is in litigation right now, where the landowners come in and say, hey, wait a minute, you can't fish there. And our response to the public is that we believe we have an easement. Anglers can fish in this stretch. However, the landowner disputes it. We're not willing to say we don't have access, and we're not being willing to say go fish there. That is our official response to this whole 1.5 miles. Well, maybe a mile stretch. Yeah, maybe a mile stretch.
And from the trestle up on the right side or the south side of the river, that's probably, I mean, there's obviously it says private road on there, right? I've talked to the landowner, and he has just flat out said that he probably won't bug anybody in that yellow highlighted area, which I debated on putting that on there, but I did because he, from his own mouth, he said that. And then if you go to the next one, this is 100% public, loaded with fish. You can see the Sundance turnoff right there on the left. And then these are some of our favorite holes from the trestle on down, the wing dams. The only problem is it's right next to the highway. So if you like catching brown trout with a rumble strip in the background, it's fun, but there's a lot of fish. And then of course the county line, there's a nice parking lot right there and stairs that go down to the river. And then we call it 189 because literally where that 189 is on the map, there's a sign on the road, 189. And there's a bend right there that's just loaded with fish. This is a great dry fly section of the river. It nibs really well. You can streamer fish. You can actually, The guys that I see throwing Rapalas and spinners do really well in this section. And yeah, and so basically that's everything above Olmsted, and that doesn't even include the tunnel area and then down by Vivian Park, which is really good too. But then from the Olmsted diversion, which is, you know, where the cutoff is between the artificial fly and lure and the bait section, down below in the bait section is some of the best fishing. I mean, it is I probably shouldn't say this, but I mean, it's a dry dropper mecca. It's a Euro nymphing mecca, and it doesn't get fished a whole lot. It's a little harder to wade, harder to get around. It's a little more bouldery, but it's just every piece of water has a fish in it. I mean, it's just,
There's lots of tight trees and lots of rattlesnakes. I wouldn't go there.
yeah, lots of snakes, and you know, yeah. Like I said, I was looking at it, like I probably shouldn't say this, but down there, there's a lot of joggers and hikers and stuff down by Upper Falls Park, but the river fishes really well. And
There's alligators too, isn't there?
Alligators, yeah. So, but I would also put this out there again. As far as a blue ribbon designation, if you take from the mouth of the canyon up to, let's say, the trestle, that's probably 7 or 8 miles of water that's just loaded with fish. Public access, and then up above the trestle, you kind of have to dink and dunk on where you can and can't be. I would be willing, anybody that wants to go check it out, and I could go spend an afternoon with you. I can show you around. You can use some of my flies. Whatever you guys want to do, we can do a group. We can go out and fish it. It would be really fun, and we can show you some of the issues, and show you where some of the best public water, where the public access spots are. So, because it's just a little different.
I was gonna say, nobody wants to go but me.
Yeah, nobody else.
I fished with Ryan, and it's awesome. You're gonna go and you're gonna catch fish anywhere you go up through there. It is awesome.
But maybe that kind of gives you an idea. Also, I'll say this, the landowners, if you want to pay the day fee, you can fish anywhere you want. If you go into the campground and go to the office and get a fishing pass for the day, you can go anywhere you want and get the red carpet treatment, but you have to pay kind of similar to maybe in Wyoming, the Hams Fork, they have the paid access. So, but yeah, and I wouldn't mind if you reach out to me or email me, I can send you pins of where to park and which direction to go. So yeah, I just want to be a resource to whoever wants to go try it out and give it a score.
There are 3,000 to 6,000 fish per mile throughout the whole entire canyon.
And in some places, they're 10,000 in some spots.
So,
And then Mike had his cute little flies because he's an elitist, but I put my, like, yeah, there you go. There you go. Sow bug. Okay. You don't have to get too cute, right? It's just throw that on near the bottom. You're going to catch something.
What size? Please get out and fish it. Please go out and try it and utilize it. I would mention we might be sampling the Lower Provo River this coming fall, mid-October. We haven't finalized our decision whether it's 2025 or 2026, but there's 4 sites on this river that we will be sampling. Like I said, it'll be this fall or the following fall, and we would love to have any one of you that would want to come out. Some of you have come out with us before, when we shocked the Middle Provo this last year. I'm happy to have you come along with us and give you another perspective on how do I judge this river? It'll just allow you to see what we get to see with electricity and with the sampling. Does that help? Give you a kind of place to start or place to go?
Yes. Do we want to or Ryan, do you want to, maybe, do we need to set a date? Or if you wanted to I guess what I don't want is for you to have to go out, 10 different times.
Yeah.
Right. So,
I won't bother you, but
There's 10 out of really rough.
Yeah. Yeah, we can set a date if we want, or I don't mind. A lot of times I'll be there in the morning, or I can do the afternoon, or vice versa. So yeah, I don't mind.
okay.
There.
Cool.
So, but yeah, like if we want to set a date, even if it's not ideal conditions, we can still go
Yeah.
catch fish. So if nobody can get out, in the next month, set something up.
Okay, well, why don't, I'll just send an email, maybe just like an email to the group is the way to get it started after.
Yeah, and maybe what I'll do is I'll put a couple dates out there that I'm available, and people, if they want to make themselves available, they can. So maybe do it that way.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. We can try and take advantage of that. That sounds like a great opportunity. Shall we go to Utah Lake then? Chris, which one do you want to?
Let's start with that shorter catfish one, and I may bounce around on these. You guys are a difficult group, you know, it's like didn't quite know what you wanted to talk about, so I may just hit a few things and then really kind of like get you guys to tell me what you're interested in, so.
Yes, it's this awesome.
Wow.
Okay.
So cool. That sounds like
Man.
Demonstrate how you fight that.
Let me.
catfish.
My soundbags are a little bigger.
Okay,
Two or
you
three
should just be able to scroll through that, I think.
Thanks, do you mind if I just kick you out?
That's
This was my ultimate plan all along. So, yeah, I know you guys are, you know, kind of, you're thinking, wow, Utah Lake for Blue Ribbon. But I really was kind of here to highlight, I don't really think everyone appreciates what we have in Utah Lake. So I grew up back east, spent a ton of time on Kentucky Lake. It's like, you know, Paris Land, Kentucky Lake, like largemouth bass mecca of the world, catfishing mecca of the world. The town I grew up in has the world's biggest fish fry, has a giant catfish statue. So I guess what I'm saying is, you know, from back east, I'm used to doing a lot of catfishing. And when I came out here, I was just amazed at how well Utah Lake catfishes. So, you know, especially given our proximity here in the West, you don't have too many opportunities to catch big catfish. I thought about just putting the pictures of me and my boy up and just not even giving any information. But I figured you guys would get pretty tired of that fast. But just show you a few of the fish that we're talking about, and I'll get into a few more details and then bounce around. So I think everybody knows a little history of channel catfish. You know, the world record is about, what is it, 58 pounds, something like that, from Santee Cooper Reservoir down south. You don't see those very much anymore. Really, most people consider like anything over 10 pounds just across the US to be, you know, either a memorable or a trophy catfish. So I just threw up this little picture of a black bullhead just kind of so you'd see the difference. A lot of times people are kind of curious how to tell the two apart when they're small. The real key is that forked tail on the channel catfish above you there, versus that, you know, barely forked kind of rounded tail, kind of like a brown trout tail on the black bullheads. Sorry, you're thinking. Yeah, I've been having computer problems, so I sent her my slides. Let's see if it's gonna work now.
Chris, is there different channels? You get guys coming in and say, yeah, I caught blues, I caught.
Trina, do you mind checking this out? I'm listening. No, so in Utah, we only have two species of catfish. We have the channel catfish and the black bullheads. There might be a brown bullhead lurking around out there somewhere that's been brought in hatchery stocks throughout the years, but really the only things that we have of number or channel cats.
Well, I think you can just use the bar.
Okay.
So.
And black bullhead. So what Mickey's talking about is, yeah, if you look on the reports for Utah Lake, a lot of times people are saying that they call it a blue cat. And what they've caught is typically a male channel cat that's colored up. And I think I may have a picture of one of those, but they'll definitely get a lot bluer color, and they'll get this really big bulbous head too. They'll kind of go through this breeding transformation, but those are all still channel cats. So good question. So as you know, they're not native to Utah. They were introduced in 1911 with going into Utah Lake as the first water body. What we're talking about today is really Utah Lake opportunity. So I was just showing you a little bit of what we've got. You guys know we have a lot of carp in the reservoir, but also quite a bit of biomass tied up in white bass and channel catfish. You can see some of the biomass kilograms per acre estimates there. And when you look at it from the number of species and the frequency caught by anglers, channel cats come in second to white bass. Here's what I think is really neat about Utah Lake. So this is a length frequency distribution. You guys have probably heard some of these things before where we talk about stock fish, we talk about quality fish, we talk about preferred fish, and we talk about memorable and trophy. So this just kind of evens the playing field when we're talking about, you know, what anglers want across the United States. And what is very impressive about Utah Lake is that huge group of fish that are from quality up. And so you can see here from our netting, we've got a huge proportion of the fish that are 15 to about 23, 24, and it's still a huge group of these fish that are in the memorable to preferred stage over 24 inches. And this is from our netting, which actually is skewed a little bit more towards the small side. So what's our average catfish now that we like catch by an angler, Mike? Maybe 8 pounds, 7 pounds. And that's a legitimate average. That's not like I'm, you know, blowing smoke. If we catch anything as an angler under 5 pounds, it's kind of memorable because we don't see that class show up. Most of the fish you catch are going to be 8, 9, 10 pounds. At least the ones I caught. Mickey probably catches those little guys. So there's just another breakdown. I can't see. Did somebody beep in?
Yeah, this is Bill.
Hey, Bill.
I'm curious, can you spend a minute or two talking about what sort of tackle you use?
Yes, absolutely, Bill. I probably took a lot of those slides out, but when I get to a little of that conversation, I'll elaborate on it. So
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. Just another little breakdown again, just showing all those really nice fish. So Bill kind of, you know, set this up for me. I had a lot of pictures, but I felt they weren't really needed with you guys. In terms of gear, you can get as specialized equipment as you want, or you can just take your like medium heavy bait casters, spinning rods, something like that, and take them out and set them up for catfishing. That being said, I bet Mickey would probably be happy to sell you some expensive rods and go down that dark path like I have done, where I've got my trout rods and I've got like a dozen catfishing rods because I'm always taking people out, and so they're just always set up that way. So as far as just kind of useful equipment, I cut a lot of that out, but we'll get to that, Bill. But yeah, as far as just your rods and reels, anything medium heavy, I usually run about 17 to 20 pound mono, again on my catfish specific rods and reels. And then one thing that will really save you a lot of fish is even if you're fishing with just 10 pound mono, if you'll set up a leader with about 20 pound monofilament, that will save you a ton of fish. Because you guys have tried to lip a catfish before. It's got that really abrasive mouth. It'll chew through that 10 pound line. It won't always like cleanly break it. It'll just sit there and chew through it. And that's how you'll also end up losing a lot of fish. So some of the rigs, this is where I was going to spend a little bit of time because I figure you guys kind of know your rods and reels from a lot of the other fishing that you do. But, pretty traditional rigs. You've got for bottom fishing, you've got your floaters, which can present your bait just a little bit up. And then the trolling. And I'll talk a little bit about the bottom rigs and then maybe spend a little bit more time on the trolling because I figure that's where some of you guys might be a little bit more interested or in the dark. So by far the absolute easiest thing is just a slip sinker rig. A lot of people call this a Carolina rig. Everyone calls it a fish finder rig. Here's where that having that leader can really come in handy. So your main line can be 10, 12 pounds and you're still going to catch fish. But where it's really important is having that leader be like 20 pound mono. And so you guys know the setup. This is like you're setting up a Carolina rig for bass fishing. You can set your gear where it's a little bit loose. You can let it run and then it just allows the fish to grab the bait, kind of chew on it a little bit. And then you can either set the hook with a J hook, or I've totally, for most part, switched over to circle hooks where it's really great for kids. You just reel the fish down, or if you're trolling, it just automatically sets itself. So super simple, but if you haven't set one of these up, just look it up online. It's worth your time. So, you know, and here's some kind of variations of it. These are some that I've made. You can see, you can vary your leader length depending on how, you know, what you want, but it's usually about a foot, 18 inches. You can vary your size of your weights. You can put on some of these little sinker slides, as you can see up in the corner, so you can easily change your weight back and forth. Super simple, easy to do. Another one is a 3-way rig, and I'll kind of shoot through that. You guys have probably seen this for crappie fishing a lot of times. Same idea, usually fish it straight down in some of the deeper holes. Slip bobber rig, I'm going to hit these pretty quick because I think you guys are pretty familiar with just kind of the traditional setups on your float rigs. But here's one I want to talk about a little bit more that I didn't get into until probably about, I don't know, 8 years ago or something like that. It's a Santee Cooper rig, named for the reservoir, huge catfishing reservoir down in South Carolina. Really, it's very similar to that fish finder rig, except you've got a float, just a peg float, right? Usually a peg float, and then you've got your hook probably about 3 or 4 inches below it. And you can see what that does. It just floats it off the bottom for you. So if you've got a lot of weeds or sediment or something like that, you can extend your distance, make it sit right off the bottom, right off the weed line. It can be as high as, 3 or 4 feet up to just a foot up, just to kind of get it out of the muck. You've got your bait floating there. It does a much better job, I feel like, of kind of getting the scent out there and helping those catfish find it instead of having to root around when it's buried in muck or vegetation or algae, things like that. The other thing that people do with this is kind of the exact same idea, but a little fancier version, is it's great for trolling for catfish. And the first time I ever heard this, I'm like, trolling for catfish? What is this? But it will change your mind about catfish, and especially if you're, a kokanee fisherman or a trout fisherman or a walleye fisherman that kind of already enjoys trolling and is set up for it. This is a great rig. So this is a little fancier version. I actually brought one to pass around for some of the trolling guys, but you can run it usually about a half mile to a mile an hour. And the great thing about it is, just like with trolling for anything else, it lets you cover a ton of ground and find where these fish are. So here's one without the weight on it. And I'd always be happy to help you guys set these up, but you can see, in other words, this would go to your main line. You'd have your sliding weight or a pegged weight, and then this is your setup here. And, if you're like Russ and you like to bedazzle and pretty up your baits, then you can also do that. So I'll pass it around.
What bait are you using with it?
Great question. So easiest baits, what I like the best are cut bait, white bass, and carp. But, really, I've caught a ton of fish off of shrimp, night crawlers, hot dogs, some of the shiners and things like that. But also really just some of my favorites is just chunked up white bass. So you guys know, if you're fishing for white bass, they're going to be anywhere from about 8 to 11 inches. They make perfect just steaks, right? Just cut them about an inch steak and then put that on your 4 to 8/0 circle hook, something like that. Behind that, and then trolled. So other good one, if you don't have any white bass, just chicken breast. I tried to do a study past couple of years, and it seems like the white bass is a little better, but I catch a ton of catfish just on chicken breast from the grocery store. So my wife loves it when I'm always stealing all of hers. Bait tips, usually the fresher the better. I put that in there because it's like, I've got a really nasty looking white bass or I've got some fresh carp. I'm probably going to go with the fresh carp. Seems like a lot of times fresher is better. This is a little different than, some guys swear you got to let it sit outside for 8 days. I've never really found that effective. If you want some extra scent, what I'll do is maybe soak them in like a mixture of soy sauce and orange Jello or red Jello. I don't know if it makes any difference. It, keeps me from grabbing the wrong chicken, and it makes me leave a trail of red stuff all over the boat, which is kind of fun, but you can always do some things like that. So that was really quick. I didn't talk much about spots to go, but I just wanted to run through that real quick. You guys have any questions? Tell me what you want to know.
What would one expect in the middle of June?
It's a great question, Bill. So like timing, really just about any time. So I've already been out catfishing once this year. Caught it 1 or 2 small ones, but really, if I was going to send you guys out, I'd say start thinking about it in mid-May, maybe even really nice April, mid-April, mid-May. Probably the peak being mid-May to June-ish. That being said, if you want to just catch male catfish when they're spawning, that is probably the best time for that would be July or even August. So I'll delve into that a little bit. So the cats start spawning, mid-May, July, kind of depends on the water temp. Before then, though, if you get out pre-spawn, that's probably your best chance to catch some big female fish before they go off feed. But then as the females come in and get serious about spawning, the males get really aggressive. So I kind of feel this is anecdotal. This is just my experience, but some of my biggest cats have come actually in mid-April when those females are trying to still pack on the pounds. They haven't gone off feed. And then some of my days with catching the most of those kind of like average 8 to 10 pounders have been in June, July, and August. Locations, I didn't provide a ton on locations because I don't know. If you've ever seen my boat, I don't go very far from the marinas. I've got like a little 16-foot boat that's underpowered. Pretty much all my fishing spots are within a half mile of any given marina. So I think in my experience, you can pretty much find catfish about anywhere. If any of you guys are wanting to get out, I just maybe encourage you to give Mike or I a text or a call, and we can kind of tell you where we've been here lately. Another thing that really comes in handy with the trolling is if you don't know where they're at, you can just do a zigzag pattern, kind of like you do for kokanee, except you're running parallel to the shore to see if those fish are in shallows, like along the weed line, or if they're out on the flats. It took me a while to realize that the catfish aren't always just on the weed line. Their diet, when we do the studies, is predominantly chironomids, like little tiny bloodworms and midge larvae. And they're getting those out on those fairly featureless mud flats. And you will catch a ton of fish, and you'll be looking at your sonar, and it's just like flat bottom, 4 or 5 feet of water. So don't get discouraged trying new spots that way. The absolute best place to be, like especially during the spawn, is anywhere though that there's a hole, there's structure, there's riprap. But I'd seriously say these days I probably catch more fish just out on some of those featureless flats.
Are you talking about the other fish, the walleye or white bass, or everybody's asking about?
There are no
others.
other fish.
There are no other.
Next question. I can talk about white bass a little bit. Is there any other catfish questions before we move on to that?
I just, Chris, I think it was in the presentation, but make sure you caught it. The white bass, catch your white bass at Utah Lake and use them at Utah Lake. That's legally, just to stay legal.
Yes.
That's the only place you can get them from and fish with them there.
Sorry, Trina, I'm afraid to touch it.
Don't worry.
And I would say I used to have certain places where I would always go, but now with all Chris's fishing, no matter where he goes, he's catching catfish. They're just everywhere out there. Is what we're starting to realize with what he's been doing. It's not just, oh, you have to go here, you're not going to catch them. He catches them absolutely everywhere.
I mean, probably an average 4-hour day, you could catch, probably my best 4-hour day or so was about 25 or 30 cats. But easily you can go out and catch like 6 to 10. And most of those are big fish. So it's it's a great opportunity for kids, big kids included.
Okay, I got a question about the lake itself, Chris. for
Yeah.
you. I just saw this article on the internet yesterday. Taking the tires out, I assume it's at the marina at Saratoga Springs. Aren't we spending money to put rocks and logs and everything in the water to protect things? And, you know, decades ago, these guys put these huge tires in there. Did this help the lake? Did this hurt the lake? Or did it not make any difference as far as the lake and the fishery goes?
You know, I think it helped the lake. I mean, the bad thing about tires is they leach out so many, you know, laundry list of chemicals, everything from petroleum products to microplastics. So I think that was a good project. I saw some of the comments as well about people complaining that that was their catfishing spot. So, but no, I think that was a worthwhile project. Those things were an eyesore too, because half the time they were above when the lake would fall down in volume, there'd just be a whole bunch of tires thrown around out there and it kind of looked like a junkyard. So.
Is shore fishing as good as a boat?
It depends. I've had good years, but it's definitely, you know, as with most species, usually you're going to do a lot better if you can get out in the boat. So I've had, you know,
Anchoring in a boat or mostly just trolling?
that's a good question. I do both. If I a lot of times I'll troll to find where I think they're at, if that makes sense. And of course you can't troll those big things through vegetation, but if I start picking up fish right on that weed line, then that tells me pretty quickly, it's like, okay, I should probably stop trolling and then anchor up or spot lock in some of those places and fan out 3 or 4 different rods. So. White bass fishing, I'll go through this pretty quick. Another great opportunity on Utah Lake. This is a presentation I gave a while ago, so you guys forgive me. I'm going to kind of skip through some of this and just get you the main information that you're looking for. Most of the white bass these days are about 10.5, 11 inches, so about half a pound. Past few years, the average size has been increasing and they've been looking really good. So it's always a little bit of a question on how fit they are when they come through the winter. So far, they're looking pretty good, but we'll keep our fingers crossed. And we have a ton of white bass. So when you see these guys that have buckets, 5-gallon buckets, don't feel bad. Those fish are going to good use. They're getting eaten. And if anything, we could use a little harvest to thin down the number of mouths we have to feed and hopefully increase that average size. The best time to go white bass fishing, they catch them pretty much all the time through the ice and extended season. But really, if you want to get out, typically late April. I always write down mid-May on my calendar. I put a spot like on May 15th that says go fishing for white bass. And they'll congregate pretty much anywhere where you have rock, gravel, or probably most importantly, some sort of moving water, right? So that means a tributary, Provo River Delta. That may mean the sewer affluent wastewater coming in. That may be Spring Creek or one of the little spots, one of the little creeks or seeps in between between Linden and American Fork Harbor, or those hot springs out at Lincoln Beach. One of the favorite spots historically has been Utah Lake State Park. Just to orient you, we've got this is a picture of the Provo River Channel a few years ago when it used to come in there. Now a significant portion has been rerouted to the Provo River Delta. It's still going to be a great fishing area, but just kind of notice that things have changed if you haven't been to Utah Lake in a while. So we've had the state park down at the south there, and now we have the Provo River Delta, which now has 4 smaller channels coming out of the Delta, which is a prime spot to white bass fish. I think that's probably the only place I white bass fished this past year was at those channels right as they come into the lake. As far as baits, the prime one is typically a curly-tailed jig on an 1/8 ounce or an ounce jig head, depending on kind of how deep and how far you're wanting to cast. White curly-tailed jig, it's kind of like the equivalent of the white tube jig up at Strawberry. fluorescent, chartreuse, anything along those lines. I actually use a lot of pink, but that's just because I like pink. But anything along those lines, small rapellas, you name it. So super fun fish to catch, super easy. Fly fishing, I can't remember if I kept those in here. I probably didn't keep my fly fishing ones in here. But you know, little clousers or lefties deceivers or anything. I have a bigger white streamer would probably be my line. So I've got a bunch of streamers I used to use for striped bass fishing back east, and so that's what I typically use. Any sort of like 3-inch white streamer. I'm just kind of getting these pretty quick. I think all these are pretty familiar to you guys. So, any other questions? This is some of the stuff I sent out. There's a whole bunch of other information out there, like probably more info than you want. I shared a big PowerPoint presentation we did with Rocky Mountain Anglers, and I think Blue Ribbon helped sponsor that one, on catfish. Shared that information, and it had some QR codes in it for other information. White bass, kind of the same thing. For you guys that know Pat Scouten, Tube Dude, he's kind of one of our famous catfishermen on Utah Lake. He's got a ton of white papers that will literally show you every harbor, every feature, and tell you where to go fish. So if anybody wants any information, I can probably overwhelm you with info on places to go.
Do people eat the catfish out of Utah Lake? Or, okay, wait, let me change that. Do you eat the catfish out of Utah Lake?
I'm fine. Yes. Yes. So that's a good question. There is a consumption advisory on catfish for Utah Lake. It's mostly geared towards pregnant women and nursing women, but I would advise you to get on the Utah Fish Advisories page and look at the details on that one. I do eat catfish out of Utah Lake. I do limit my consumption, but so far that's not the worst thing that's wrong with me. The white bass, there's no consumption advisories whatsoever on them. So eat as many of those as you want. Mike, did I miss anything? Sorry, I felt like I was rattling pretty fast through all that.
No, enjoy it. And especially if you've got kids, grandkids, it's an awesome fishery to be able to take kids out that can catch fish. I mean, just fish after fish if you get it at the right times and the right locations. And that window's pretty big, as Chris mentioned. You know, mid-April through May. Find that water, find those locations that he mentioned on there where the rivers are coming in, there's effluents, and you'll have a lot of fun, and they will too.
It'll spoil you from those little 14-inch planters out there. You get a 10-pound channel cat on. It's a lot of fun. Seems like last year probably about every like 7th or 8th fish was typically over 10 pounds. You get a lot just in that 7 or 8, 9, and then you finally get a big one. So I think I caught several over 10 and a few over 13. So it was a lot of fun last year.
What about pike?
Pike, if you want to go after pike now, from now till the next month's probably a good time, Mike. The Provo River Delta or the Hobble Creek Delta would probably be where I would send you. Either the Delta itself or the lake adjacent to it. So.
Possibly Lincoln Beach.
Thank you.
Springs just north of the arena there that they congregate in is where we found a lot of our net stuff too.
So I know that was super quick, but between all of our regional office, somebody is typically fishing on Utah Lake once a week, if not several people. So if you're interested in getting out, just shoot us a text and say, where should we go and what should we try? And we might have a lot more timely data for you. So
How about a phone number for that text?
yeah, my cell phone is 801-234-9639. And it's probably on one of those seminars or something I sent out yesterday too, Bill, but you're always welcome to.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Thanks. Do you guys mind if I put your presentations on their Google site? Just like so we can see. And then also, it'll be Tyler's phone number, but all of the regional representatives that have their phone number and emails on the Google site too. So even if you maybe don't necessarily need to get a hold of Chris, but you can get a hold of Tyler too. And Tyler's done a great job of updating the volunteer spreadsheet that we'll go through a little bit later. So yeah, do you want to just pick up on the project stuff and then we can get back to council business after that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's next. Okay, so it's the next page.
Trina,
We're gonna do Fall Creek first, because go.
Okay.
Yes.
since Larry's not in the meeting today, he's normally been the one that's coordinated getting some blue ribbon people down to the expo to kind of promote blue ribbon with the bingo cards. Is that been assigned to anybody? And if not,
No, I don't think it has. He said he was gonna be there though. He said he's got all of he has all of the bingo cards and he's got some stickers and brochures. He said he was gonna be there. So it wasn't necessarily like where he
okay, I mean, a couple of people, we should have a double booth. We're sharing Toronto Unlimited and Blue Ribbon jointly. And I sent him a text and found out he's not at the meeting today. So I'm just bringing it up because it's a good time. If anybody wants to get there, let me know and make sure you get through the door without your $10.
That's a good point. Yeah, if anyone wants to help out with the expo, and it can be used for volunteer hours, your time there. So, Mike, did you have anything that you need me to bring up?
Under documents, and there's a little presentation. Bill, I may have some of that information that Larry had at the Fish on the Hill in my office. I think I may have, wasn't much left, but I think I still got the little box that had stuff in it.
Okay, well, bring what, you're gonna be there, I think, in the Cut Slam booth, right?
Correct. I'll bring
Okay, I don't know where the booth arrangements are, but we'll find them. If you can bring that. I'm just gonna have a bunch of stuff laid out on tables. I'm gonna have a video. If anybody has any short, like in couple minute videos of great things, we've got a variety of stuff. And I'd like to know in advance so we can kind of program what we're gonna be showing, but I'm gonna have a video monitor and PC there to do the videos. So.
It's not as fluid as when Daniel was doing it. Get it there though. Okay. Let's see. Might have to go back to the other version.
We have to have it all showing.
Yeah.
Okay, no worries.
So Bill, if the slides don't advance, let us know.
Okay.
Okay, I was just gonna jump in. They're asking us to be downstairs. We've got a few presentations that the Central Region needed to give down there. So sorry, Garn and others, for me kind of jumping line here. What I wanted to present today is the project that we're working on in the Central Region and the Northeast Region together. And this is another one of our rote milling projects out in what we call Fall Creek. This is a tributary to the Rock Creek drainage. If any of you are familiar with Granddaddy Lake, that's kind of up at the head of Rock Creek drainage. All that water comes down there, and then this is kind of an offshoot towards the east, going up and into a drainage. This is what the drainage looks like now. We had a fire there about 5 years ago now that really come in and wiped this drainage out, and I'll be able to show a little bit more of that. But that was significant in how it's affected what we are actually going to need to do to restore Colorado River cutthroat trout in this drainage. Our workload has lightened up significantly because of that fire. First, we thought it was all gloom and doom, but I'm actually thankful that we actually had that for some respects to the amount of work that we're going to have to do here. So I'm just going to buzz through this. I'm probably not going to spend a lot of time on a lot of these slides. But this is very similar. You guys have approved some funds for this project already, or for the OWEEP project, if that name sounds familiar. It's a next drainage a little further east where we've done something similar. Is that you, Bill? Are you seeing the new slide?
No, it didn't change. The same one, this cover slide.
Okay. So can we just go to this where I would have to actually edit it or something? And we can see all the junk on the side, and that'll be just fine.
Yeah.
Something like that. And then I
Yeah.
can just.
I went 2 slides. But
Better?
that's,
Okay.
there they are.
Okay. So we've spent a significant amount of time up there the last few years, just trying to recon, figure out what do we have? What streams do we need to treat? What lakes do we need to treat? And going from there. This map kind of shows this. We started this back in 2022. There's an awful lot of streams all along up in here. We felt like we were going to have to treat all of this stuff. Okay, but after we hiked every one of these streams over a couple years period, maybe the next slide will show what we've actually got fish in. It's a lot less. Now what we're having to deal with is what we've got here in purple is what we're actually going to be treating. This is Finney Lake. It's a 17-acre lake. Anderson Lake, it's about 7 acres, surface acres. Up here you can see a couple more, a really large lake up here that we're not going to even touch. That one's got brook trout and cutthroat in it, but it doesn't have any connection with any of this stuff. So we're going to leave that alone. Ledge Lake here, when we were doing some of our sampling, we put nets in there, and it actually winter killed between the 2 years that we've been up there and hiking and doing our recon work. So we've actually put cutthroat back in there last year already. We'll monitor that. We'll look at that again a little bit more while they're treating this year. But essentially, we're down to about 6-7 miles of stream here that we're going to treat, and about 24 acres, surface acres of water between these 2 lakes. I believe that a lot of this actually had fish in it before the fire, and now we just do not have fish there. Again, I'm blaming it on the fire, but it sure made it easy for us to find these streams, walk up and down these streams and find them. We went back in the second year with electrofishing equipment to verify, did we just not see fish, or are there actually fish? We shocked all these streams. There's no fish in them. So we were pretty excited that, hey, this is really boiling down to a little bit easier treatment than what we originally had set up for. So again, I may be giving you too much background on what the project really is, but down low, let me show you where this is at. This next waterfall is right in this area, and we've got multiple streams that all come together down here, and we've got this shelf down there that's about 8 to 20 feet tall on every one of the tributaries, where we believe it's a true barrier, that nothing's going to make it up and over this. And in fact, just below these falls, there's some other tributaries here. We've got brook trout all over the place down below, and up above, we have no brook trout on all that north facing stuff. But when we go over towards that Finney and Anderson lakes, we do have brook trout there, but we've got a wonderful barrier there that we can kind of say, okay, from this point up is where we're going to concern ourselves with Colorado River cutthroat trout. Below there, we're probably going to wipe out the brook trout down there as well. They will come back. There's no barriers that stop them, but they will not make it up above these barriers. So we're going to have a lot of streams miles up above here that we won't have to worry about. Again, brook trout all over down below. And that's the primary species that we're removing up in this area is brook trout. Okay.
Mike, can I say something real quick?
Yes, please.
I think this, you can kind of see that, this ridge here, this would all be fish barrier, right?
Yeah, in fact, all of those purple little pink dots, those are fish barriers as well. We identified all of those, but this is a giant cliff that we walked down over all along here. Nothing's making it up through there, even though I've only identified.
So that's in addition to the barrier that you.
That's in addition to all these barriers down here. Yeah. So even though we've got some fish right down in this location, they're not going anywhere. And the areas that we're worried about, again, are mainly up in this area. But again, we've got a cliff there that's 500 feet high. Fish are not going up through there. So we really feel pretty comfortable about where we're treating and what's going to happen after the treatment. Once we remove the non-native brook trout, all of this area is going to become home to Colorado River cutthroat trout. And we're still, I think we're kind of trying to provide unique opportunities. I mentioned we're not treating this up here. And you can come up here and catch all kinds of brook trout, cutthroat as well. So there's still that opportunity in this area. We're not wiping everything out, and now the only thing you get a chance at is your Colorado River cutthroat. There's still diversity throughout the drainage, and that's on purpose. That's by design. Another thing I would mention just in general on a lot of these Uinta projects that we're doing, we're trying to go into places that are a long ways away, where 99% of the people are never even going to see. We don't feel like we're impacting too many people by removing their favorite brook trout and reestablishing the Colorado River cutthroat. And at the same time, we get to say, hey, now we've got another 18 miles worth of stream that are home to Colorado River cutthroat, another 44 acres of lakes that are home to Colorado River cutthroat trout, and it removes that threat of them being endangered or put on that endangered species list. Does that make sense? That's really one of the overarching goals of the division, is we don't want to have any more species listed as an endangered fish. So coming into these remote locations where we're going to be playing, we're 13 miles from the nearest trailhead. We're a long ways back into the mountains. So we're not, in my mind, I don't think we're impacting very many people. Nothing really to mention here other than there's a whole lot of equipment that needs to go into the area. We've got 100 gallons of rotenone, liquid rotenone, that we've got to take up on horses, 500 pounds worth of potassium permanganate, which we neutralize that rotenone. We don't want to kill anything down in Rock Creek. We've got 16 people that are going to go up and into there. All of our camping gear, all of the drip stations, the kick boats that we've got to use to go on all these lakes. There is a ton of material that's got to go in there. And we've tried it, and we've done it in the past to try and do this on our own, but it is just not very cost effective. It's just too hard. It's too much work. And so that's why we're coming to you now with a request, a continued request, for some help. We need some help in getting all that equipment, getting the people up and into there, with an outfitter, if you will. I don't think there's anything else here I need to mention.
I'm just gonna add that it does make a big difference, because as a high lakes biologist, I've gone on trips myself where I'm in charge of horse wrangling, cooking,
chasing
fish
horses,
sampling and everything. And so
dripping, everything
up at
else.
the crack of dawn, hobbling horses to feed them. Then you're cooking breakfast while the horses are feeding, and then you go cut the horses, saddle the horses, then you're off to sample. Come back at night, hobble horses, let them feed till dark, catch them, tie them up. So having an outfitter do all that makes a world of difference.
Absolutely. It allows us as biologists to go do biology work instead of being a horse wrangler, and a horse chaser, and a cooker, and a whatever else. It really has made so much difference the last 3 years we've been up on Old Weep Creek doing this exact same
And then the
project.
better thing is he brings more fancier equipment than what we would bring. During the OE treatment, we had some terrible weather, right? To come
It's
down,
always gonna
soaking
rain.
wet, and to have a big wall tent with a furnace in it, also nice.
We really aren't babies. We really aren't. We can handle a lot of rough stuff, but this just makes a world of difference when we've got somebody kind of taking care of us and making it a little bit more convenient and making it possible for us to be 13 to 20 miles back in away from anything and everything. And we're doing the biology and he's doing everything else. It's been a game changer. Just the dates, it'll be early August is when we're going to be doing this. This one lake that we're treating is 37 feet deep. We're trying to treat it at a time where we get that rotenone into the lakes, and then shortly thereafter, we anticipate the lake doing what we call the turnover, or it mixes. So in addition to having the rotenone just on the surface, that lake, because of temperatures and things, will mix up together. The rotenone will go everywhere. We anticipate killing everything in the 1 year. And I'll get back to that in just a second. How do I go to the financial page? Just want to be able to show you. Maybe we don't even need to go there. There's $39,000 is what the outfitter will charge us for this second year. He is already on contract. We went through a bidding process last year and you funded us for his work in 2024 on the O-week drainage. And it was a 2-year contract. So he's already under contract. We don't have to go through that big process. We just need to come to you and say, are you still okay? Do you still feel comfortable with us spending another $30,000 on the outfitter to do this year's worth of work? And so that's really what we're after.
There you go.
So,
Not to mess with.
so
Yeah.
39,000 is the ask, but then there's a whole lot of in-kind work. We've got our own horses. Garn mentioned he'll be bringing horses. We'll be bringing equipment. We've got 16 of us that will be going up and into there between technicians, Forest Service personnel, DWR personnel throughout the state. We actually pull in biologists from all over that come in and help us do this work. So the total, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was a little bit more than double that for all the in-kind. 60. So it's 84,000 when it's all said and done. When we are asking 39,500, and that's what's under contract. That's what he has bid it out to be for us. So that's what we're here for today, is to ask for your help in funding this project and allowing us to get another 18 miles of stream available for the Colorado River cutthroat, and then the 44 surface acres of water that we believe will have Colorado River cutthroat trout in. And that 44 is not just the 2 lakes. There's multiple other lakes that were up in the area that we are going to be putting fish in. That's where we come up with a much larger surface area and where we'll have those. Anything else, Garn, that I need to mention there?
I just that one thing, like this outfitter's not just for that 1 week time frame. I mean, they're helping us right ahead of time, so it's a week. It's months, but it's a week ahead of time of getting all of that stuff up in there. And it's a week afterwards too, to help get all this stuff back out. So it's not just a 3-day window. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, he's making multiple trips. He goes up and.
We've got 3 trips planned for him before, getting us up there, plus additional trips to take all the rotenone, all the costume, the camping gear, you name it. So we're paying them for a lot more work than we would ever do.
The other nice thing from a supervisory perspective is that they also take on a lot of the safety. So they've got like the sat phones, and we all have the GPS spot messaging systems, but it's just nice to have someone else there who's like an expert thinking about safety as well. So that's thankful for.
I'm not a cowboy. 5 years when I went out to help Garn the first time, I was told I was riding 20 miles in on a horse. I was like, oh my gosh, it was a rough ride, but we're getting into it a little bit more, and to have, like you say, an expert up there, has all the horses, the mules, the packs, everything is just, it's actually pretty fun. It actually is really nice and really fun. So I would put a primer in here. We've got this treatment. We're hoping to complete this and have 100% kill. In my experience, I've never done 1 year's worth of treatment. It's always involved a second year where we've got to go back in and do another treatment to get those young of the year fish, or to get everything taken care of. The last thing any of us want to do is spend all this money, go in and do a treatment, walk away. Oh, whoops, there's still some fish here. Now what do we do? So the primer is there may be an opportunity for us to extend this contract 1 more year. If we do, I don't think it will be as much, because we would leave a lot of this equipment and materials and everything up there and say, okay, now we just need a little bit more to go back up in and do it and complete it a second year. We don't know that yet. We can't make that decision until a little bit later. So.
Mike?
Yes, sir. Bill.
This is kind of a strange question, but it's the one that could be asked, especially by politicians. When what is the biological or slash, beneficial benefits of this project to fisheries and humans? If it's 20 miles in on horseback, who's ever going to see it benefit? And, it seems to me like a question that we ought to have an answer for.
Okay, yeah, let me try and answer it for you, Bill. One of the things I mentioned is one of our top tier goals, one of our top 3 goals as an agency is to prevent any species from ever being put on the endangered species list. The way we do that is we show that there's X number of miles of stream, or there's X number of acres or surface acres of water home to a particular species, fish in this case, Colorado River cutthroat. And if we can justify that or show that and show that we're making progress with the ultimate goals that we have as an agency, we want X number of miles of stream by year 2030, then we are then able to say, okay, Fish and Wildlife Service, other agencies, private individuals, we are okay. We are making progress. We have enough to where that species or that particular species is never going to be listed as an endangered fish. That's probably the number one reason, Bill. But the other thing, maybe I'm playing it down too much. Yeah, nobody's ever going to go there. Yeah, we see people up there every time we're there. There's people hiking, and there's people that actually, hey, this is where I want to go. I want to go a long ways away, and I want to catch those fish. I'm being one of them. That's not why I'm doing the project, but there's a lot of people that do want to go out and have a remote experience and catch these fish.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna add, that just because it's a long ways into them, nobody goes there. People
Right.
go there. And the other thing I'm gonna add is, this isn't exactly on the Highline Trail. I mean, it's just slightly off. This Fall Creek drainage, the Highline Trail goes over Dead Horse Pass into Fall Creek drainage. But these lakes are just maybe a mile south or whatever.
Just south, it goes right past Ledge Lake, right
I'm gonna
along
say
Ledge
this,
Lake.
there was a movie about the Highline Trail that came out a few years ago. And since that movie's been playing, there's been a big uptick in the number of people that hike the Highline Trail from east to west the entire distance. So
Good point.
there has been an uptick in the number of people that go up in there.
Does that help, Bill?
Yeah, but let me further the first part of your answer. Is the Colorado cutthroat, is that close to an endangered status? Or I don't have any idea on that. I mean,
Yeah, it's what's referred to as a state sensitive species, which is the next list down from the endangered and threatened species list.
okay.
I would also add that it has been petitioned for listing in the past, but the Fish and Wildlife Service ruled that it wasn't warranted.
Because of projects like this,
Yeah.
or projects where we've shown that there was progress being made.
Well, before moving to Utah, there's some related issues on the South Fork of the Snake that have to do with accomplishing various objectives to avoid getting listed and stopping fisheries all over. So I understand that part.
Okay, so thank you for the questions. Anything else in
I
here?
just have one final comment.
Yes, please.
I don't know that anybody in this room has an understanding of how complicated these projects are. So Mike and Garn should be very, very happy, and I guess we're all thankful that we have people like them in the division, because these are some extremely logistically challenging projects to pull off. So thanks to Garn and Mike and their crews for figuring out how to do these things in the wilderness. And the outfitter is so helpful.
Thanks, Natalie.
Physically demanding. So.
It is. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
I might disappear and take downstairs.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, while I have this up, I think I was going to talk a little bit about navigating through the pages, because every year I'm always like, oh, I need to let people know how to navigate through the pages, and then I forget. So Garn and Carson, give me another minute. So when you click on the link, right, whether it's the title or the number, it takes you to this title page. And so that's got a little bit of information. but it's the project details page. So you just click on that. That's where you're going to find out why are they doing the project? What are they trying to accomplish? Where is it? Management plans, it's related to, did all these things. And then the financial details. So on the first section is the budget. And so that tells you what they're asking for, right? So for this one, he's asking for funding for potassium permanganate. But that's actually an in-kind cost that the division's going to pay. Let me scroll up. So that's in kind. So that's not the actual, that won't be the actual request. The contractual services, that will be the request. And then this would be like other funding. So like Habitat Council, in kind is either going to come from the Forest Service or Trout Unlimited, or maybe it's something the division's going to purchase. And then when you scroll down, that's going to sum all of it up. And so Trout Unlimited is putting in $92.50. The Forest Service with their in kind is $6,000. The blue ribbon request is $39.5. And then the DWR, and I can't remember what this is for exactly, but it's like in kind. So that's where you can see the budget breakdown. If it's a species that is positively impacted or a habitat that's positively impacted. If someone like provided a comment to the author, so this all looks good. Or if you want to look at the images, like you can go back and see some of the stuff that Mike just presented if you wanted to remind yourself. So if you wanted to spend a whole ton more time, you definitely can, and that's how to do that. So sorry that was probably not clear. Like I said, I try to remember just to let you guys know, and I clearly spaced that. So I thought came up. Carson, you're presenting. Did you have?
There's a PowerPoint. I'll show a video towards the end as well.
Is it this?
Yep.
PDF?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so I have to then switch over to present that. I'm just going with that, and then I'll share. Just thinking that might be easier. Uh-oh. Where'd it go? Where did it go?
Bill's time flies or something.
Oh, it's that one, huh?
Might be.
Somebody tab. Okay, got it.
Teaching from home. Set up my tie.
So Mike got a quick job of kind of telling you how these large scale Roanoke projects start and detailed the beginnings of one. This funding is for the later stages and really how we accomplish our end goals. So we're looking at our helicopter support for our high Uinta Roanoke treatments. Okay, so just information about them. So we want to provide helicopter support for hauling personnel and equipment during Roanoke treatments to restore native cutthroat trout in the Uinta Mountains. Mike talked about using outfitters. Where it's applicable, we can also use helicopters to accomplish our goals of moving people and moving equipment. And specific to the South Fork Sheep Creek treatment, we need to move larger boats to high elevation lakes that are 10, 15 miles up, and it's impossible to do without this helicopter support. This also enables us to do these treatments in a matter of days instead of a week plus. Another instance of using helicopter support is in the O-Week drainage that's on the south slope of the Uintas. So we actually finished this treatment last year. It's a multi-year project. And what we use the helicopter for once the treatments are done is to restock fish. So we actually have a contraption that we hang from the bottom of the helicopter, and we're able to restock, multiple streams and lakes that are 15 to 20 miles up in the backcountry in the matter of a day, which would, if we did it by horse, would take us multiple weeks, and it would also be detrimental to fish health, having to carry those fish up the mountains over those long periods of time. That just kind of goes over a little bit more in detail of the specifics for South Fork, Sheep Creek, and Oweep drainage. Like I said, those hikes and getting back in there are very time consuming. They're very difficult. They take a lot of people, and both of the treatments treated areas that to restore in a short amount of time and restock would be pretty much impossible without the help of a helicopter. So specific objectives, we want to complete the South Fork Sheep Creek Year 3 treatment in a maximum of 2 days, and we're going to use a smaller working crew than we have the previous 2 years. We're going to restock the streams in the Oweep drainage with pure cutthroat trout in 1 day. We're going to then determine the effectiveness of our treatments using surveys such as environmental DNA, which is collecting DNA from the stream, and then we can send it to a lab and they can analyze what species are prevalent in those water bodies. And then once we restock with cutthroat trout, we'll manage them as conservation populations, like Mike alluded to make sure we preserve those species and keep high enough numbers to keep them off the endangered species list. Breaking down our finances for this project, our total budget is $42,000. For the finishing of the South Fork Sheep Creek treatment, we're asking for $27,000, and for the Oweep stocking, we're asking for $15,000. I'd like to say that we have invested multiple years as the region into these projects, especially in restocking Oweep. This is the final key. This is why we've even done all this work. So we'd really like to be able to finish these things out and see our projects become successful. And then before going into questions, I did want to show a video. I don't know if I need to share this other screen, Trina.
Yeah, it's all sharing thing, isn't it? I don't know. Bill connection. Is it shared? Yeah, let's share this instead. And then that should work. You can just get that out of the middle. There you go.
Stocking of our fish. Hey. And that is any questions?
That was cool to see.
Yeah.
I'll just comment again. I don't know if you guys know, we're trying to run 2 separate treatments in the region this year. That's why Mike has been pulled into this, because we can't do these. They're so big and so complicated. Our team do just one. Like, our goal was to, and Drew has pushed us to try to wrap up cutthroat trout restoration in the region. So there's one going on this side of the mountain and there's one going on this side of the mountain. So again, it's quite impressive what our crews can do. And this is just another small piece to the puzzle to get it all done.
Very cool.
This is the
Thank you,
important
guys.
part, right? Making sure fish get back.
Yep.
Thanks. Okay. Is it Nick up next? Southern Region Biology.
Let's see.
Yeah. Okay. Nick, do you have anything that you wanted me to bring up, or you just want to talk?
I can just talk.
Okay.
Not my favorite. Yeah, so this is the project. Basically, I charge most of my time to it. It's basically to fund a biologist in our region. And it's a project, we talked a little bit about it in the last meeting, but it's a project that was started when Blue Ribbon was first founded, and it came from the people who originally got Blue Ribbon started. Stream restoration was starting to be a big deal, and they wanted to fund projects like that. They went to the manager in the southern region at the time, Dale Hepworth, and said, "Hey, what stream restoration projects do you have that you could implement?" And he said, I can't because I don't have the people. So that's where the money, that project came from. As Dale said, if you really want to help our region, we need another biologist. So that's the history of it. So basically, I kind of do everything. I work mostly with Blue Ribbon Waters and habitat projects. That's what I spend most of my time on. So I've been to all the Rosgans, and so when we have habitat related projects, that's usually I'm the one in the region working on that. So that's kind of the history of it. Yeah, so it kind of hits on sort of your ranking criteria on enhancing fish populations, fish habitat, angler access, staffing, and then likelihood of success. So we've been doing it forever. So I work kind of on all aspects that are in the ranking criteria. So I think it fits well that way. I'll point out that if you look at the dollar amount we're asking for, realize that that's not what I get in my checking account. just like, wow, it seems like a lot of money. So that includes like the truck that I drive around in, workers' comp, benefit taxes, travel. It's everything that goes along with having a biologist work. So it's just a summary of the position in the project. Yeah, if there are any questions, I can answer them.
Yeah, you guys have the bulk of the, I guess from a statewide perspective, it's not, all of them, but you've got, relative to other regions, you've got quite a few Blue Ribbon Waters down there.
We do, yeah.
Like more than any other region.
Yeah, I think we're the biggest region geographically. Yeah.
This could be your exit strategy. Do you want to keep your job?
That's what I'm here.
Okay. I just checking. Yeah. I want you to have it too.
And I don't know exactly how it all worked. I think originally there were 2 positions that were funded that way, and it's shifted a little bit over time. And I think it's now about half the funding comes from Blue Ribbon and half, I think, from legislative money. So those decisions are all well above me. But yeah, that's how it's worked out. But yeah, we really like it. It's worked out. I'm sure Calvin wishes he could get another biologist. I'm glad Dale did that when he did, because that's.
Well, it seems like the data supports that it's really helped your region and really pushed it forward. So I think it speaks for itself. Yeah.
Let's see. Swan Creek, cutthroat trap release. Swan Creek. 7427.
Yeah, let me just make sure that I am sharing that page. Okay. Go to pull up images there.
Oh, you want me to just go through it by myself? My goodness. You can drive. All right. So my name's Clint Brunson. I don't know if I have to do any telling you who I am. Anyways, so Emily Wright is the biologist at Bear Lake right now, but she was not aware that she needed to present this. So forgive me if this may not be as fluid as Emily's would be, so this is our fish trap at Swan Creek. This is on Bear Lake. It is a major tributary to Bear Lake on the Utah side, on the west side. And as they talked about this morning, this is where some of our initial work was. We collect roughly 230 to 240,000 eggs out of this fish trap every year for quota. And these are Bear Lake cutthroats. They go to Strawberry Reservoir and to Bear Lake. So those of you who like to fish strawberry or like to fish Bear Lake cutthroats, this is the source of those fish. And they go to other places too. I think Panguitch gets some. So this is a major brood source for that strain. And usually these cutthroats that we spawn in this trap are used as a predator on top of chubs. And so this is our management tool, or our management fish for chub control in most of these waters.
Pure strain Bear Lake.
Yep.
Why can't you use that fish catching the strawberry in the cutthroat slam?
Because it's not in its native range. That's why. So this is the little house. This is the little fish trap that was built decades ago. You can see a picket weir kind of on the far right of the screen, just where all of our kind of faces and stuff are. And then this drop that's kind of center of the screen. Oh, okay, there you go. Yeah, so this is a picket weir. So it strains, this makes it impossible for cutthroats to get above. The only way they get above the trap is to go through the building. And then this is a drop that we create as well. So let me see if I can get to the next picture here. Yeah, so you have a little walkway that goes across. And so this is still on the south side of the house, looking upstream. Sorry, didn't mean to do that. And then this is a picture of it being inside. So this is in the middle, and the stream is coming from the orange barrel towards you. There's a big gate, there's a big door that we flip open, and water comes in, flows right through our feet and then out. As those fish jump up, they get into where our feet are under this table, and then we will net those and put males on the right, females on the left, or however she's separating those fish for the year. And then this little drop that's at the top with flow coming through is also gated so the fish can't get out. So this is our collection, and this is where we go. She will start in April. She's probably she'll set this up next week. And we collect fish and spawn fish usually starting in April. We'll start collecting in April, and we will collect fish and then start spawning usually the end of May and through the month of June. And our hatchery guys will come up and strip those eggs out of those fish. And again, they're sent statewide. So this project is for money for the lease, if I am understanding what I'm supposed to be talking about. Yeah. Okay. And so this is for $36,000 ask over the period of 10 years. And that's directly just coming only through, I think, just Blue Ribbon. So we have a couple of leases. We have a little bit of a lease from a landowner on the north side of the creek that allows us access into that main building. And then we have access from the south side to like park vehicles and all of our equipment that is used to run the trap. And so this is just a once a decade ask that we make in order to pay for those for this facility and the upkeep for that. So if you have questions, yeah, go ahead.
So the fish come in that building.
Mhm.
And then do you keep the fish and
So,
save them until it's time to put them somewhere, or? how
so
does
what
it
we,
work?
so what we do, so the fish, they come in, they'll jump through, like, it's about a 4-foot wide slot. They jump in, and then they try to swim through and get, but they're captured in this, and
On
it's
the
about
floor.
6 feet,
On the
6 feet
floor where
wide.
you're
Yeah.
standing,
Or-
okay.
Yep, and there's about 1.5 feet of water there. We'll separate a male and female, and then, like I said, we usually wait until, and sometimes it's the second week, third week of May, and then we'll have our hatchery come up and we'll take the females, and the ones that are ripe, we'll strip eggs, and then we'll take the males and strip those. And then the females are then released to go back to the lake. The males are put in a separate bay, a separate cage, separated because they've already had their genetics taken, right? And then as more males show up, if we run low on males, we can go back and we can take a second take out of those. But once we reach our quota as far as egg takes, what we do is we really pull the picket weir and allow those fish to run. Wild fish, anything that's coming after that can run past and go upstream and spawn in Swan Creek. And so we release all the fish. Once we spawn those, they all go back below the trap. And if males want to run, they'll move upstream and can move above. If we meet, so the one day, I think it was our third egg take, we had some females that were still green, meaning they wouldn't give eggs. And we had met our quota that day, so we just stuffed them through that hole on the top end so they could just go above and spawn that way.
So where do you keep them while you're waiting to take their eggs? Do they just live in a bucket or something?
No, so we have our walkway that's like this, almost exactly the length and width of this table. And on either side, we have, I think there's 4 different pens on each side. And that's where we'll net them. So we'll net those fish and put all the females in 1 or 2. And if we get too many, then we start spreading them out, coming through. But once we spawn those, then they're released below. So we kind of keep moving through those fish. So cool opportunity. It's a cool thing. You get to hold some 25 to almost cutthroats. Oh yeah. Right.
Show that one.
Under documents.
Yeah, go to the left.
Under
Right there,
here?
I think
Yeah.
that's, Emily Holden. That's nice.
So, yeah, this is a wild fish. It's not fin clip. This was something that was spawned here in the reservoir and has returned to spawn again. I mean, these are some cool. But anyways, anything else?
Yeah, to the 240,000 eggs, how many fish does that typically represent?
That's a really good question,
They
Bill.
have really good
Oh.
IF survival, so
Yeah.
it's not obviously 1-to-1, but I bet it's closer than any other trap. They usually do really well.
Yeah, so our survival, once we get fertilization taking place, our IUP is really high, and our success with this strain, with these fish is really, really good. We don't lose a lot. I mean, we still have some loss, but I bet probably 85 to 90% of those 240,000 eggs turn into fish that are stocked. So.
Okay, my question was a little different. I'm thinking that how many eggs in a given female is about 1,000? So that would be 240 fish if those numbers were right?
No, these are a lot bigger. So these fish will probably hold, I would imagine that these, if I remember right, they hold 3,000, 4,000 eggs.
Okay.
Maybe a little higher than that. Because when we do stream side work and take, little 12 to 14-inch cutthroats, we'll get 500 or 600 out of these.
This one that she's holding is like a 28-inch cutthroat. 10 pounds. I mean, this female is going to produce a lot of eggs. So, or this might, you know.
So I mean, then it might be 100 fish or so that are actually used to produce the eggs.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to calibrate somewhere in the closest, few thousand.
Yeah. Like I said, this is not my, expertise. If you're asking Wall, I could tell you exactly what we're talking about.
No, I mean, a good guess already improves my knowledge. So
anyways, Russ.
Yeah, question. So I'm sure every 10 years you enter into a new agreement, sign the documents and so forth. Does it, if the property's sold and went to another landowner, does it carry on? Is it part of that?
That's a really good question, and I do not have that answer.
The easement will, yes.
The easement that we have.
And our lands people are helping her with this, and so it's gonna be on the up and up, and yes, it would carry over. So then the next 10-year renegotiation might be interesting, but we would at least have that wiggle room where we could, really start those negotiations early.
We had 3 or 4 years that things were really, really difficult to get in here because of the landowner on the north side.
Mm-hmm.
Those have kind of been smoothed over and taken care of, and we've done some work and some things there. And I haven't met her. She's an older lady, but we were trying to purchase something a little bit more permanent.
Yeah.
But
is it a permanent easement?
I believe there's an easement for the property. Don't hold on it, please.
Yeah, well, I didn't even know. I honestly thought the division owned the place. I mean, literally owned that.
We probably
land.
We have this little place, but I think we have an easement to get to it or something around it, and then we have leases in order to access it. It's kind of a weird little situation. It's just Bear Lake Valley in itself is just exploding with development of second houses and huge places.
I ask, but I mean, it's been years since I've been there, but I did help Bryce and Scott on this at one point for 1 year, and it was interesting. It was very interesting.
It's a cool area. It's awesome to see these fish. I mean, you just don't get to see this opportunity, every year. And so then Strawberry, I think they also take, they also take some eggs at their trap too. And that finishes off the quota, if I understand right. But we take a lot of eggs out of this little facility, and it's not as big as this room.
Yeah.
So.
And if you have any further questions, or if you want clarification on that, like I said, it was my fault that Emily didn't know that we would have loved to have her here, but I didn't have any invite. So I can get her the questions though, if you've got further questions and further clarification. I'm sure she'd be happy to answer.
Okay. I just looked on the random spreadsheet from last year. So one spawn day last year with 30 females, they averaged 2,600 per female.
Not very far off.
No.
Right. You said 3,000 to 4,000. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Trina. Yep.
You must be a biologist.
Yep. These are much Lost Creek too.
Okay, and then there's just the administration, right? So let me stop sharing this. Oh, yeah, so sounds like that didn't come off, but it should have come off. That's gonna be for 2027.
If one comes off.
The Pelican Lake milfoil, they were gonna focus on Bullock Reservoir this year, and that's not a blue ribbon water. So I think they're hearing that in Habitat Council.
So would maybe Emily want to do a field trip?
I'm sure Emily would love to host small numbers of council members. So part of that easement is, restricting the number of people, but I was able to go help out. So I'm sure she would love it if 1 or 2 at a time would come up and help. We'd have to coordinate it. So I will contact her. It's really cool. Dress warm, because that water as you can imagine, is cold. And you're in the shade, obviously, that you're covered. I didn't realize it would be covered. And so I went, I didn't wear my thermals and I couldn't feel my feet at the end, but it was totally worth it.
Just like fishing.
We've all.
Okay, we have to close out some stuff here. So the last one is, I'm not going to pull it up. It's just the Blue Ribbon Council Administration. So I think I'm kind of dialing that in. We did 5,000 this year. That's how it ended up. And I think I'm going to go over a little bit. I'm going to have to beg for forgiveness. I shouldn't have said that. Like it's being recorded. But so I bumped it up to 6,000, and that basically covers your lunches. And then if there's anyone traveling from greater than 50 miles, actually, I think it's 75 miles now, but from further away than that, then we can get them reimbursed for mileage and that sort of thing for their trips. I did a clothing order this year, so things like that. And so it's just nice to have. I think we'll need more bingo cards and maybe brochures too this next year. So it just pays for things like that, and that's what that request is.
I have a question on that. Like when we did Southern Utah last year, you go and pay all the state part fees. Is there any reimbursement for that?
I don't want to misspeak, but I feel like we could make that happen.
Experience.
We need to figure out how to make that happen. So let me ask,
Okay.
because that's a good point.
You mean when you fish down there?
Yeah, you have to access it. So you have
Yeah,
to pay, right?
Yeah.
So I was curious.
Maybe we get a park pass. Can we do our own proposal?
It would. As good as it should.
You got
Be better. Okay, so I wrote that down. It's just something to follow up on. I will let you know.
There we go.
Are there any questions about any other questions about the administration portion? No. Okay. I'm gonna go back to other business.
You want to know, we have to pay these others. At least they're connected to us.
Oh, that's all the projects.
Yeah. License, right? Yep.
It's just stuff.
Right here.
Yeah, and I guess for the water body scoring, Tyler's going to talk more in June. I think he's going to talk to you a little bit about some of the sampling that's been done. Not a ton, right? But we'll talk a little bit about that, and then we can, if there's any additional field work, he's got a little bit. We'll talk about that in the volunteer opportunities, though. So there'll be more to come on that. Okay.
Volunteer opportunities on the Blue Ribbon side.
Should be.
Yeah,
I don't think
so-
it's been updated last time there.
Why don't we just go there and because that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. So we might as well just jump there. Wow, this thing. So this is the latest, and I just added in this stuff for Calvin yesterday. So he doesn't have specifics, but just to get you guys thinking about Schofield, Joes Valley, Duck Fork, but northeastern region has some cutthroat spawning activities, Flaming Gorge Reservoir. Southern region has their stuff. So don't forget about this, and it usually is going to have the contact person and how to get a hold of them, general instructions. And then there's also non-blue ribbon. If maybe the dates don't work out for blue ribbon, you can always hit the non-blue ribbon. It's just a volunteer opportunity to get out and interact with the biologists. Just so I don't think it needs to be restricted.
And that's on the Google Drive, is that?
This is on the Google site, yes. And just wanted to point out to the reservoir habitat construction, and it sounds like there's potential for reservoir habitat projects. Putting those things together, those plastic structures together, takes a lot of time.
Put my stuff on when I get a date. Sorry.
Perfect. Yeah.
I'll jump in and say I'll put that in because we're gonna have probably a date.
Yeah. That's when the help is needed. It's just in the parking lot putting plastic pieces into.
I'll be having instructions for guys like me because I get lost pretty easy.
That'd be fun to help.
So yeah, Calvin was gonna do April, May construction, so he'll hone that date. That's coming up pretty soon, where fall will be installation down at Recapture, but that construction is just in Price, so that's not too far away. So yeah, I think I'm gonna try to help out with Little Dell this year, so here in the central region. So I just wanted to remind everyone about that. Are there any questions about that? Appreciate everyone updating that spreadsheet too. I try to, that's where I look for, okay, where can I get out? And then what before that? Oh, the outreach. So we talked with the outreach folks about the final outreach list, and we have that. So I was just going to go through that just so you guys could see what we decided to do. Ice fishing in January was kind of scrapped.
There was and there wasn't.
There wasn't. And was it safe? Yeah. So then in the Bear Lake update, we actually decided to combine with the krill surveys. That actually just came out yesterday. So it was kind of a plea to answer the biologist questions when you get asked, you know, for your krill information out on the water. And then we just talked about like using Bear Lake as an example of how we use that information, just like a quick snapshot, because that was just a Facebook post. Then we've got spring fishing, and we're combining. So I think she says that they're going to spend some time on, Garn's got some hyaluinas. So if you remember those booklets, which were so amazing, well, they don't want to print those out anymore, but Garn's been working on updating them. And so I think they're going to get those posted to the website, right?
Well, not all of them, but so I did the White Rock trainings last year, and they're supposed to get it posted and available this ahead of this summer. And right now I'm working on the Lake Fork, Yellowstone, Swift Creek one, and the Sheep Creek, Carrier Bird Fork one. And Matt did the trainings for the Northern Region last year too, last year.
Yeah. So watch for those. That'll be awesome to have that as a resource. And then we're going to combine the spring bass fishing and targeted outreach to the out-of-state anglers. And we're going to focus on the southern portion of the state, and because they also get a lot of out-of-state anglers. So that we've actually already worked on. The press release is ready to go. We're just going to wait on it. We met an early deadline because it's also going to go into that Nevada tourist magazine that we usually submit something to this time of year. So that's kind of already been worked on. The starvation screen was, I think, set for May. We now know that screen won't be constructed until, it won't be installed until October. So we just moved that around, and May is just kind of open now. Thought we'd talk about just some of the Blue Ribbon projects that were completed for the year. Do that in the June release, and then catch and release best management practices. I think it's always good to just remind people, especially as we go into the warmer seasons. And then fishing for warm and cool water species. So like really highlighting some of the, the fishing that can kind of start heating up that time of year. And then encouraging maybe people switch away from trout at the lower elevations, especially. We always talk about a kokanee closure in around August, just closing those streams. High elevation fishing opportunities as well. And then the Northeastern region is working on a really cool project with some of their Colorado River cutthroat trout. We always tell people we're doing rotenone treatments and give them the information so they can avoid those areas, usually do an emergency change, that sort of thing. But on the back end, the success of the project typically I won't say it's been lacking, but we could do better. So they're going to go up, hopefully with Adam Eagle. I don't know if he's actually on board, but Phil Tuttle's going to get out in video, maybe someone from the news agencies, and they're going to fish the area, sample the area, and just really talk about what a success that the Reeder Creek project was, which was one of the first road treatments that the region accomplished for cutthroat in like the early 2010s. So it's a really cool little fishery. It's a long way up there, but it's pretty accessible, and we're hoping it just brings in a lot of good press. And we'll just do fall fishing, some sampling results, and we slated that for October. That might be a little bit early. We'll be flexible on that. But I guess the vision wasn't to have a lot of details, just kind of some pictures and general information. And then they always highlight the blue ribbon waters that we reviewed. I'm sure depending on what happens with Utah Lake, that would be a highlight from that. And then just some information on what does the Blue Ribbon Council do in December. So that was kind of what made the final list. And typically we're just trying to do one a month. Sometimes it'll be two a month. As most of you know, we've already done Fishing Day on the Hill. That sounded like it went well. And so I appreciate everyone who was there. Next year, taking that 11 a.m. time slot, I bet it'll be super money. I bet that'll be a lot better.
Heck, there's nobody there. There was all of us.
Yeah.
We're all just wandering around talking to each other.
Well,
One legislator walked through.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounded like it was a little slow, but next year's going to be awesome. So it sounds like that's already, I think it's February 12th or something for next year. I've got it on my calendar. So, and that outdoor rec day on the hill, I didn't actually get an update on that. Our outreach section attended that. I don't know if anyone else was there. Wasn't sure if we wanted to do any fishing seminars like we've done in the past. And I think Larry's the head of that committee. I just talked with him, but now's the time to try to get something on the schedule if we wanted to. So if there's no feeling for
Still
that.
doing the walleye seminar every division.
I don't actually know.
We used
I
to
think it's just left up to the regions. Because I know you guys did a warm water fishing deal last year, didn't you?
Yeah, we did.
Walleye specific, but
walleye's always packed.
I thought it was last year. I think it's just kind of left up to the regions if they want to do something. I'll talk to Larry. So that would be, and then of course I don't know if it was Russ or Terry, someone suggested, but don't forget the fly fishing expo. So that is the outreach list. Any questions on that? We'll just start working on it.
Budget up. I think you want to bring this up on the mountains.
Oh yeah. So apologies that I wasn't here in January, and it sounded like Jordan's presentation on the Diamond Mountain Lakes, it was well received, but I wasn't sure. It wasn't clear to me if we were going to review that for Blue Ribbon status as an area this year, or did you want to wait till next year? I wasn't sure how that went down, so I was just wanting to spend some time asking about that.
I remember this winter.
What's that?
No, see what happened this winter. Ice out, see if we survived.
Similar to the boulder? Is that kind of the?
Yeah, there's 3 lakes out there. They're very productive, so they grow big fish, and they're all rainbow trout fisheries with I think brown trout and maybe tigers. Okay, tigers. So, and they're all right together. 2 of them are managed just like because quote family fishery, the others managed as a trophy fishery. And it really works out if the fish survive and make it over winter. It's hard, when they don't make it over winter. So you want to just revisit it in June, and maybe we can get a status update from Hostway on whether or not they survive. I'm sure you guys will know by then.
Okay. We're still getting great fishing reports from that one through the ice right now, and pretty recent ones for Calder too. So we're pretty confident those 2 are going to make it. Grouse, on the other hand, we're crossing our fingers. That's all.
Grouse have
Out there, the oxygen was low on grouse.
Does grouse have one of those solar beads or aerators?
That's not, and it actually has the least amount of water going into the winter time too. So yeah, if it could make it through, that's it would be the 3rd winter. It would have some monsters in there, but I will tell really soon, but there's still 15 to 20 inches of ice up on those lakes right now, so it's gonna be a minute before it starts to even pull away from the bank.
They have the oxygen levels on all three.
I believe so. There are monitors in all three right now. But here in a month and a half, we should know what we have going on. I can report back to you guys then,
Yeah.
or email, or whatever you guys want to do after we do our spring netting. We can let you guys know what the outcome is.
Yeah, great. It is super fun. I mean, those fish are big and they fight. It is way fun.
They stole so many ice poles this year.
I lost one.
I think I counted
I lost
8
one.
people telling me that their ice rods went through the hole.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you turn your back for a second and it can be just,
I like this lake.
oh, it is.
Don't tell anybody.
Okay, and we just have the budget update. So let me share the budget. And the person who does the budget updates, she is on maternity leave, so we haven't gotten an update since early February, but you can at least take a look at all of the projects and the percent expended. So the stream restoration training, Don has assured me that he has submitted invoices. So people have attended trainings and he's given them the information so that is not 0% expended. That should not be. So I don't know. We don't know what's going on there. We need to figure that out. Fisheries administration, like I said, that should be expended. So the TU biologist, that was funded from you guys last year, and that's the Trout Unlimited half-time position. So Trout Unlimited pays half, we pay half. And it's for assisting with a lot of the rotenone treatments that these guys do. That one is mostly expended. And then if you remember, we had to fund just a lot of monitoring projects and tech time. So Bear Lake, they said they were gonna, Emily said she would have that spent out. This is just $1,000 for rewards tax. So that will be spent out if someone catches a reward tag at starvation. If not, we'll have funding. And this is Northeastern Region Tech Time. That'll be spent out. Lake Fork Drainage, that's I think that's the outfitter. So that project is done and that's fully that. This will be cool. The Cedar Springs fishing pier, that's going to be delivered.
Being delivered as we speak.
Yes. And John is a machine and he will make it his mission to not sleep or do anything else. And I bet until he gets that thing installed. So yeah, that funding was already encumbered, and it should be completely spent out, and that thing should be installed for their opener. So that's exciting. That's just more monitoring for the Central Region. That'll be expended. Community water creel, eDNA monitoring. They're not doing that till later this fiscal year, so that will be expended. Mike and the Provo River Angler Access. I'm not sure where he's at with that, but I know it's happening, right? The state park's already spending their money. So
Yeah, there's
Is that the boat ramps that they're talking about?
this is that it was like a improved access that he was going to try and do just to make it easier for people to get. And I can't remember the area specifically. Do you remember?
Yeah, it's right below Deer Creek Dam for like a hand launch. It's really nice. Yeah, I talked to the state park. They're going to be done May 15th. The boat ramp's in right now. So guy was fishing off it.
It might have also been part of like the takeout, because the takeout at Vivian was a discussion where someone else had already come through. I don't know if it was like the county, but they kind of came through and smoothed it out of it. And he was like, well, why put more money into it if it's already been coming?
I just need to.
It'd be worth knowing.
There's still one boulder I would like him
Yeah,
to move.
right. It's a big one.
Oh, we
Let him know.
kind of backed up a little better there.
He just had to go downstairs and have a deck council, as Steve mentioned on the way out. Next position, and then Southern Region Monitoring, and then Recapture Reservoir Fish Habitat. That's actually spent. I think it'll show up in our next budget printout. So I think we're on track to
it says we're only 33% expended, but I think with like these big projects where it's, we're paying out for fish habitat structures or docks, that sort of thing, like once those hit, we're gonna be like 90% expended. So that's good to see. Any questions on that or reminders on any of what the projects are? Okay.
That's it. Any new business? We had enough? Want to make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
First, second. All in favor?
Aye.
And we're done.
Thanks,
The next
guys.
meeting is,
It is actually, was it June 18th? So if you remember, Juneteenth is that Thursday, and I think they just changed it, but I don't think I think it's gonna be applied July 1 and in the future. But Juneteenth will be celebrated on a Monday from here on out. But this year didn't know that, so we moved it to June 18th, which is a Wednesday. So that is kind of weird, but you'll have, either you already have an invite or you'll have it soon. Yeah, I haven't sent that out. I'll go ahead and send that out if you have it, a nice reminder. And don't forget to finish up your scores by April 4th. If you have any questions as you go through, just let me know. We can work through stuff together. Yeah, happy to help out.
Yeah,
And
this last slide you had up, was that money that's currently allocated?
yes,
And then we need to find all these
so
other
it's
projects.
basically like, that's this current year. So the spending for this current year, the projects that were allocated for this current year. So starting July 1, that's what y'all are ranking now. And so it's basically, what does that list look like next year, starting July 1?
So the fiscal year is July to July?
It is.
Okay, all right.
July 1 to June 30th, just to make it really confusing.
and the scoring sheets will be with the little tabs and our names and all that.
Yeah, and I locked them so only you can access your tab and no one else can look at your. So I figured all that out.
Awesome.